everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on the Greg Rich Ministries podcast. And Tanner and myself, we actually wanted to take a minute and just explain, we're really going a little more in depth about the Brazil trip that we're going to be taking. So for those of you that don't know, we're taking a short-term missions trip to Brazil in May. And we're really excited. We've both spent quite a bit of time there.
Yeah.
And we're excited to be able to go back and partner with the churches that are there in Brazil. And we're excited to tell you more about the opportunity you have to go as well.
Yeah, so we're going to be going to two places. The first place that we're going to go is João Pessoa. This is up on the northeast coast. It's a beach city. We're going to spend about a week there doing ministry. And then the next place that we're going to go is Aracaju, Brazil, which I was just there in March. It's a beautiful place, another place that's on the coast, and so we're excited to be going.
Yeah, and actually, we went there. We spent about 6 weeks, our first time to Brazil. And we went to both of these locations. Both of them have an amazing organizational structure with their churches there. They're already doing amazing things, but we want to come alongside them and really just be an enhancement to what they're doing, and especially when it comes to outreach.
Yeah.
So we want to do one of the things that really is on our heart that we love doing, whether it's in Kenya or Guatemala or Brazil, we love doing street evangelism. And share a little bit, because you were just there.
Yeah, we did some street evangelism in Aracaju. Actually, the church, it was the first time that they had their entire church get involved with street evangelism. We were coming and they made a whole event. It was awesome. We split up throughout the city. We went to doctors' offices, bus stops, the marketplace throughout the city, even some schools we went to, and really having, access to multiple places throughout the city, we were able to reach, the lost and touch those that, were hurting and in pain. And we saw so many miracles that day. So many people get healed instantly and give their life to Christ. And that was just in one day. And we're going to be going for 2 weeks and doing these things.
Yeah, and one thing about that, sometimes you can naturally get this intimidation factor, like street ministry. I've never done that before. But the one thing to remember is that you are equipped. You know who God is. You know the person of Jesus. And as you go on the street, you actually are just trying to relate with people. You're trying to talk to them.
Yeah.
And then that door becomes open because the Holy Spirit's there to guide you. And one thing I love about the street evangelism is we're not going there just to get people to say a prayer and say, wow, we got another person, added to our number list. No, we actually are genuinely caring about these people. We want to see them born again. But then they have these churches that we're going to be working alongside. They have an infrastructure in place where they're going to be able to be discipled after the fact, and there'll be follow-up. But we also pray for people, and we see a lot of healing. And I'm not sure if you guys had some things.
And there were some great things. Off the top of my head, one of the ones that I remember vividly was there was a boy there who was 3 years old, and I was at the doctor's office. It was almost like a urgent care type place, that people were coming where they were sick. And so they had, visible symptoms right then and there. And there was a boy, he was about 4 years old, and he had a fever at the time. And our team, prayed for him, laid hands on him, and that fever left. And because it left, his mom was like, oh my goodness, God is real. He loves us. And she and the little boy gave their life to Christ and left, and were on their way. So they got plugged in at the church as well.
That's awesome. And that's one of the goals that we have is we want people to get saved. We want to see them healed, but then we also want to see them become discipled. And that's why we're excited about the churches that we're going to be working alongside. So the dates of the trip, it's May 21st, I believe, is when we'll be leaving from Tulsa. And then we'd be coming back on June 4th would be the final day. So it's great because it's not too long, but it's long enough.
Yeah.
Where we're actually being able to make an impact where we're going. So at the beginning, we'll be going to, I believe it's João Pessoa that we're going first. And there we're going to be doing evangelism like we were talking about, but there'll also be some other outreaches that they'll have prepared for us. They'll be having us work with their youth. That was one of the things that they were really excited about is like, hey, we want people who can work with youth. But also they're going to be ministering in churches. So one thing about these cities is the Verba da Vida churches that we'll be working with, they don't just have one location. They have multiple in the same city.
Yeah.
So one thing that's great is everyone on the trip, if you want to, if you're open to it, we want to put you in a position where you can actually participate in ministering at these churches, whether it's speaking, whether it's sharing a 5-minute testimony. We don't want to cause you to be uncomfortable, but we do want to push you out of side of your comfort zone to some extent.
Yeah. And, I think Josh and myself can tell you testimonies of our own life where we were on a mission trip and we're like, if they call on me to speak, there's no way I'm not getting up there. I remember in Thailand, I asked my dad, ask somebody else to do it. I just can't do it. But, I was up there, I was nervous, I did it. And, I spoke the word and, the word does not return void. Sometimes we put the pressure on ourselves, but really it's his word.
Yeah.
When we speak the truth, signs, wonders, and miracles take place. And so don't be discouraged. Maybe you're insecure about speaking in front of people, or maybe you haven't had a ton of experience. You're equipped, you're called, and this, trip for you is an opportunity that you can maybe step outside of your daily work, your family and friends and all that's going on in this life that we have, and really step into who you're called to be, and go overseas and touch the world around you.
Yeah, and I love that point that you made about getting outside of your daily routine, and you're really saying, okay, I'm going to focus, God, on these other people. Because in our life, we can so easily get focused on ourselves and our routine and our lives. But this is a time set aside to say, okay, God, you're sending me to Brazil. You want me to go, and I'm really going to put my attention and my focus on reaching these people. And that will even help you when you're going to preach. Maybe if you're nervous, just remember, it's not about you. He wants to reach these people, and he's going to use you to do it, and you can do it. So like Tanner was saying, when we were both in Thailand, I mean, I said this story before, but I was so nervous. I literally was shaking so bad that my shoe came untied. like I know that's hard to imagine, but it really happened. But the amazing thing is that was an opportunity for me to step outside of my comfort zone. And if I hadn't taken that first step, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And being able to speak in front of people without shaking my shoes.
And we could, that's so good. We could talk about what your purpose on the other side of this trip is.
Yeah.
And that's, our heart at Greg Rich Ministries is to really use these short-term trips as a launching pad for you into what God has called you to do. And we believe that this trip to Brazil in 2024 is just that. It's an opportunity for you to get hands-on experience in ministry, to see what it's like ministering to people, laying hands on people, daily, waking up and that being your sole focus. And we're so excited for it.
Yeah, and one thing about these trips that are awesome is because you're outside of your comfort zone, you're also going to be seeing gifts that are in you already that you haven't been able to really have access to come out.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be put in situations where the gifts on you there's going to be a demand on those gifts, and they're going to come out. And if you are naturally gifted, even whether it's photography or music or whatever it may be, there'll be opportunities for you to use those gifts on these trips as well. But we have, like we were saying at the beginning, we'll go to João Pessoa. We'll spend about 6 days there doing, whatever we can to help that church there in João Pessoa. But then we'll be moving on to another city, which is in Aracaju, which is awesome. Pastor Darren Ray, he's the pastor there. He's actually originally from the U.S., but
Virginia.
we're from Virginia. And he's actually, I believe it's been over 20 years that he's been in Aracaju there in Brazil. But he's established a great, amazing church there, and they have a lot of awesome English-speaking translators, so they're going to be helpful for us. But you guys did some different outreaches there as well.
Yeah, we went to the Aracaju is in, I don't want to mispronounce it, but it's Sergipe, which is the smallest state in Brazil. And so there's a lot of surrounding areas. They've, connected throughout that state where they have different churches set up and things. One of the places that, Josh, you went there before was Pirambu.
Yeah.
And it's, a kind of a remote place about maybe 30 minutes to an hour away. There's about 4,000 people in the city. And we did an outreach there where we literally went door to door and got the entire city to come on out to the square. And we did a children's ministry. We had the word spoken to the adults, and it was just a great time of outreach that, that was an all-day thing that we really touched the community. We went and did street evangelism and then invited people to an outreach. We did those things. There's different things that we did as well that we probably won't do on this trip, but our main focus of this trip is going to be street evangelism. It's going to be ministering in the churches and partnering with what they're doing already in that community and just enhancing it as much as we can.
And I think one of the things they had mentioned was there's times we may be going to a drug rehab center and ministering to people who are in this rehabilitation process and maybe feel like they've made a ton of mistakes, and we're going to be there with the hope of the gospel that all hope is not lost.
Yeah.
So even if you're not laying hands on people, there's something there for you to impart to people. But we'll be doing outreaches there. We'll be doing evangelism. But like as Tanner was saying, we'll be going to churches. So at that in Erica's U, I believe they have about 5 or 6 churches.
It's more than that.
Yeah.
We split up to, it was either 7 or 9, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of Verba Vida churches in that area, and even other churches that they partner with as well. So it's a community that we can touch and reach, and excited to help them do what God's called them to do there.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we're excited about. Not only are we going to be able to go into these communities, into those 7 to 9 churches, but you're going to have the opportunity to be one of those ministers going to those 7 or 9 churches, because we can't all be there at the same time. So we'll be splitting up, going into different places at different times. This is an amazing opportunity for you to stretch and for you to grow, and for the gifts that God deposited in you to be demonstrated and be really placed out. So we're excited for this. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Even not leading the trip, I would be like, this is a trip I want to go on.
Yeah.
Because it's just, it's going to be an amazing, amazing time. Not only that, but I'll just say about the people of Brazil, they are so open and so hungry for what God's doing and what God's saying. And it's I don't know what your experience has been like.
Yeah, I mean, Brazil is my favorite. It's my second home. I love Brazil. The people are just so hungry and open, like you said, for what God's doing. But a few details about this trip. The total cost is going to be $3,000 for this trip. And you hear that number and you may be like, whoa, I don't have $3,000 in my bank account. That is okay, because if this is something that you feel like God has called you to do, that means that God is also going to supply you to get to this destination that He has for you. So don't be scared about the number. We've got, a payment plan that's set up. When you fill out your application, you'll see we've got a down payment, and then there's payments after that are due. But some of our team members that are going to go on the trip, they've started getting extra work, doing a project here, doing this there, whatever you can do to fundraise, use your hands, and then also at the same time, trust God. There's going to be opportunities. People are going to give towards your trip, and by any means necessary, God is going to supply.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. Once you've made the decision, I feel like I'm supposed to go on this trip, let people know that you're going to be coming, and there's going to be people that they wish they could go as well, but maybe they're not able to, but they'll want to sow into it, and that'll be an opportunity for them to go through you. So give people the opportunity to give, and let them know what you're doing, where you're going, what you're going to be doing. And, we'll make it easy for you to share updates even on the trip as well. So you can let people know who supported you, the impact that they're making through you. So that total cost of the trip, like Tanner was saying, was $3,000. But I just want to kind of cover what that's going to include. So that's going to include your airfare, that's to and from Brazil, and all of your transportation within Brazil. That's also going to cover your visa, and that's a 10-year visa. So even later on, if you're like, I'm supposed to go back to Brazil, you'll be able to do that for 10 years through this price that we're doing. This is also going to include all your lodging, all your food. Basically, just consider it that during this whole trip, everything that you're going to need is going to be covered.
Yeah.
So
the only thing that wouldn't be covered is like if you want to get a souvenir or something like that while you're there, that's an extra expense. We'd would have you take care of that yourself. But, I was just thinking $3,000 in 3 months, there's about 90 days. To get $3,000 in 90 days, that's only $33 a day. So when you kind of put it in perspective, okay, how can I get $33 today to pay for this trip? And you put things in perspective like that, God is going to provide. Don't let this mountain be too high for you. It's totally within grasp for you. So
for sure. And so the first payment that would be due is November 15th. So you have plenty of time to start fundraising. Don't get intimidated about the date or the amount. If you believe after hearing kind of what we're talking about, if like, this is what I want to do, take the first step and fill out the application. And, I would even say if you feel like I'm supposed to go, the first thing you should do is, do I have a passport? Because if you don't have a passport and you feel like you want to go on a mission trip, the first thing you need to do is get the passport.
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. And, that can be an extensive process that, if you don't do the expedited, thing, it could not get here by November. So if you're wanting to go on this trip, step number one, go and get your passport ASAP. Yeah. That is step number one. Even if you're not going to go on this trip, I think you should. Yeah. Everybody should get a passport. So here's your PSA. Go get a passport.
And then your next step after doing that would be to apply for the trip. If you'd like to come with us, it's going to be an amazing time. And so I'm excited for it. And I'm excited for you to have the opportunity to go and the growth that's going to happen. I truly believe this, that God wants to do something through you, but he also wants to do something in you. There's going to be an impartation through your life to the people in Brazil, but he's also going to do something in your life that you're never going to be the same. And that's going to be awesome. But also, just to let you guys know, the churches we'll be working with, it's Verbo da Vida, João Pessoa, and Verbo da Vida in Aracaju. So if you want to look them up on Instagram or Facebook, you're more than welcome to do so and find out some more information about them. But we also want to let you know, besides the application, if you want more information, you can send us an email. You can send us a message on Instagram or Facebook, or DM us personally, and we'll get back to you and let you know more information.
So send this out to all your friends. If they're interested in going, apply today.